Okay, hello everyone. We are here with one more episode of Esports 101. Today, our guest is one of the most interesting voices in the intersection of esports, data and grow. She is Dominika Szot. She's the VP of Grow at GRID Esports. And you are here with Giovanna, our co-host.
Hi.
Dominica, the first question you usually have is like, I did a small introduction for you, but no one better than you to say who is Dominica, how you start, and everything.
Well, it is a very philosophical question to ask who Dominica is, you know. But I'll try to do my best not to go down the rabbit hole of some psychological analysis. So I've been in the gaming industry for almost a decade. I started at like in a very regular way at the game developer studio, and went through working for some platforms, and now, currently, I've been with GRID for almost 5 years. GRID is the game data provider, game data platform specialized in live esports data. So this is on the professional side, and I've been passionate about creativity, art, and tech since I can remember. Never thought I played games, but never thought of them as a career choice. Initially, it was, I think like 15 years ago where I had to make my first career choice. So it wasn't that well known and glamorous to work in games. Where when I grew up in Poland, when I was growing up in Poland. But I was always passionate about this intersection, this overlap that I couldn't identify between art and tech. And the first time when I came across gaming and I started to work in a marketing capacity for one of the game studios, I just fell in love with this industry and the fact that it like checks both of the boxes that I'm interested in, of the categories that I'm interested in. And I've been in it ever since. I love, outside of exploring the new technological trends of the industry and going down the rabbit holes of discussing data. I do enjoy outdoor activities. I do a lot of sports. Like to cook. Fun fact about me: I used to be a chef in a restaurant, and I ran some cooking workshops to pay my college needs when I was at the university. A smart way to get some food back home and to get paid. And I think that sums up. I think like a small introduction, can be assumed to be a small introduction.
Wow. And you were like a chef in a restaurant. How was the transition for sports for you?
To be honest, I think in life, many things are about curiosity and courage. So I wouldn't say that the transition was really tough. It was more about trusting your intuition and trying out, especially in the early days of your life, what click well with you and where you find your passion is, and you feel that the time stops. You don't count hours, and you just do things, and you're in the state of this flow. And for me, at some point in life, it was I achieved with cooking and with experimenting in kitchen. I just really enjoyed being creative, and I think cooking is it's a creative skill, and I think it was just part of my path and self exploration to understand through which medium I can express myself best. So I wouldn't say that the transition that there was really any transition. It's just like, one step after another leads you to where you currently are in life. You reflect on them, understand what was working for you or what didn't, and make another sort of thought through, or sometimes not, decision in life. So yeah.
And you are growing up in Poland. I would say like more because it's in Europe, and Europe is like I don't know, like the nucleus of esports. How was the first connection that you have with game and technology? Did you play anything when you are young or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was growing up, I don't think there was much esports around, but I remember that my dad, he used to go to this like we I don't know if it's something that exists in other countries as well or did exist, but where I was a kid, we used to have like open air computer related markets or like tech related markets. So you would go to some sort of like an open air market where people would sell like used consoles or keyboards or mouse pads, but also counterfeit games. So they were just, we know at the time when I was like 10 or 7, many of the mainstream games would not really be translated to Polish. And we were still a small market for international expansion. So Polish people would translate them essentially and put on like white plain CD discs and just write with the marker which game it was. And I know that it's like borderline legal to do that, or currently it's probably illegal, but it was a way to sort of get the game into the hands of people that wanted it. And I think sufficient time passed at this point for me to mention that on air. But I remember my dad would bring those games on a weekly basis, and I remember the excitement I had before he would get back home and hand me over one of these discs. And the fun part is like I would never know which game would it be. So once I would get The Sims, the other time it was like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, and I just got them and used to play with him. And I think that was the first big touch point for me with gaming industry in general as a player. And then over time, I started to learn more about the technology in the space, and eventually sort of found my way into the industry as a whole.
Wow. And were there any games or experiences did you have that shape your vision on the industry?
Hmm. Yeah, it's a great but a very broad question. It opens the doors to many different conversations. Um, I would say they were like good and the bad experiences, and sort of everything in life can be quite sinusoidal, right? Especially in the early days of your career, where your confidence is not there yet, where you also get to interact with a lot of people who are both your seniority, and you still try to find your voice. And I remember early days of working in the industry, especially in Poland. It was quite difficult for me to find my tribe, let's call it this way, because in many of the rooms I was the only girl, and I was the youngest, and I was a woman. So I must say it was a bit challenging, and I really don't know what did I have in mind really, or what was like my conviction that it didn't discourage me at the time. Because like if you're in that mind, like in a minority like that, in a very strong and opinionated group, and you're like a novice and in a very early stage, it was at times pretty difficult to like speak out and to share my opinion or vision. And I think I know that there are mixed opinions about the state of the industry right now, like the acknowledgement of women in the space and all of this. But I personally think that we've been through such a big development arc, and I'm really grateful for where I am right now and where the industry is, and how the initiatives to support young talent, like female identified talent in the space, have developed compared to where I was starting out. I think this is a huge step forward to be where we are these days. And so I think the early days, if you ask me about the experiences that shaped me, I would say that it was very difficult, but also at the same time, I felt that it's the right place to be. And I was very hopeful about that change. And I think eventually is what also led me to starting It's Her Game, so my own podcast about women in games, where I started to reach out to other female professionals in the space, and that allowed me through that medium to build connection and my network and met many wonderful women. And I think, to your point, the other experience that shaped my view and perspective on the industry was to start this podcast and to start building personal relationship that goes beyond national boundaries and allowed me to feel supported and to feel seen and to also have this like, sort of a safe space to ask different questions, to like fully express myself, and to feel like I'm a part of a community. And I think that's really important. So to have that community, gaming is overall one community, but I think it's quite ignorant to say that this is the only thing that exists. There are so many different groups in that space. Yeah, so it's been bittersweet, but every path is yeah.
Uh,
That's great that you created this. I saw your podcast. It's amazing.
yeah,
Thank you.
and
Mm.
You're welcome.
I imagine that today for a girl in this world is hard, but when you join, it was harder because there are less laws. I imagine, I don't know because I'm not a girl, but I do. I imagine that the toxicity, I think is correctly the word in English. The people are more
Um,
toxic in that time, you know. Uh, and the talking just for trying to do something chronological, you
yeah,
did like advertising and marketing in the university, right?
correct.
Uh, why did you choose this one? Because you are communicative, or you are working with something like that?
Well, to be for me, from like everything is in a plain sight when the night is over to some extent. So if I look back and I look at my path, I can say, yeah, it perfectly made sense. I was creative. I like to talk to people. I like the idea of creating the stories for the brands and ensuring that they got personality. It was anything. It was nothing like that, to be honest. Like at the time when you're young and you're like 19 or 20, um, and like nowadays it's different. I think it's more normalized that you can choose alternative paths for yourself. And the university is not like a must have, and you don't have to go like immediately after high school. You can spend some time exploring yourself. When I made the decision, I feel like there was still some sort of like assumed success path where you would go to the university and follow this path. And I wanted to find the one that suits me best. I did a gap year. I had a gap year, so I also spent some time reflecting on what would it be. And then eventually, funnily enough, during that gap year, I also spent a few months working at a legal office because I had very strong conviction that I would make a great lawyer. So I joined that legal office, and after half year there, I met wonderful people and I learned a lot. But I remember sitting until like 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. and seeing lawyers with like piles of documents that they had to review, and I was like, this is not as glamorous as I saw it in the Suits or like any other, TV series. And I figured that I need something that would provide me with more freedom and more differentiation in my day-to-day work, or like variety in my day-to-day work. And I think I found marketing and advertising to be very broad and very expressive. And that's what attracted me to the space, that I could sort of like have my voice through what I would create as marketing or advertising campaigns.
What did you learn working at Move Games during the rise of indie publishing? How was for you?
that was a fun time. I joined when we were, I think, five, and then we scaled the company to almost 100 people. I think introduced it to the stock market, and had like a pretty good run there. But the early days were like honestly quite wild. We would have multiple games. Like from different genres, so some horror games, some simulators, different types of games. And I will be in charge of community and marketing. So I've developed some sort of like parallel personalities, I would say, working on different communities at the same time. When I would manage the community of a game called Last for Darkness, which was like a horror mixed with Lovecraftian themes and with some like blissful, imaginative words. And at the same time, I would also manage plane simulator community where I would talk all about screws and hammers and how to fix a plane. But it was a fun time. I was allowed a lot of freedom in scoping up how to create those communities. I set up some of the first discords for games communities in Poland, and suddenly I was like 21, and I was giving talks about it to different professionals in the space, which was funny. And yeah, I did enjoy it. It was creative, it was fast paced, and it was definitely challenging at the time, but I enjoyed it. We had communities so devoted to the titles that for one of the games, some of the players actually did made the tattoos of the logo game on their arms. And at that point, I was like, okay, I think I'm doing something good. So it was funny. I enjoyed it.
It's
And
great.
in that time, you already seen the esports as something majority in the industry or something like that, or it was more like I'm working with game because like I have never worked with gaming. Okay, I'm just in
Yeah.
managing, but I imagine that the industry of gaming and esports is totally different. Or I'm
Yeah,
crazy.
no, absolutely. There are some similarities. I think, especially these days. I think maybe at the time when I worked there, they were when I worked at the gaming industry. Gaming and esports were completely like day and night. But I think both over the past years have been going through a lot of professionalization, and you'd see many more. Non-esports or gaming native experts joining the field and sort of bringing expertise from different industries into gaming and esports, um, unifying some practices across both. I would still say, of course, that they are two different creatures, but they're more amicable these days, I would say. And when I was working in the gaming industry, I didn't have a plan to move to esports. It's quite funny sometimes when I give talks at the universities or I present or I speak I speak at mentorship programs. I like to show this like a slide that shows my path. And it's gaming industry, and then I work at with movie games, and I worked at Huawei, in leading the go-to-market for their app store, sort of like the app store that they had for games. And then I moved to GRID, and I started to work on the data topic for live data for esports. And I also have a timeline below. And if you look at this, at the time when I worked at movie games, like my two other jobs and the industries or like products that they were associated with did not exist. Then I moved like at all. Then I moved to Huawei. I worked there, and movie games was at sort of like movie games Grid was sort of at a very early stage, the inception phase. And then I moved to Grid, and we're at the frontier of what we've been doing. But what I like to show through that is that it's such a dynamic space to be a part of, that the role that you might have in 3 years from now may not exist, and the industry this role will be a part of may not exist. So that, like, to have like a long-term plan and to stick to it, I admire some people who might have this, but I think majority of us must allow ourselves for a bit of flexibility and trust into their own intuition, and follow what you're passionate about and what makes you click and sort of put you in this state of flow. And there will be opportunities coming your way if you stay authentic to yourself and put your best work into what you're working on at the moment. So yeah, I didn't have a plan. I feel like I was following my instinct and constantly was trying to follow the path that would allow me to do what I enjoyed most, or what gave me the most satisfaction at work.
That's awesome. And how did the opportunity at Hawaii, I don't know how to pronounce.
Right, Huawei, yeah.
Yes. How did the opportunity happen for you?
Of course. Well, I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. I feel like you need to put yourself out there. And I always give this one advice to anyone who's starting or who doesn't know where to go next. You need to make yourself a bigger target for life. If you do that, you will attract the right opportunities. For the role at Huawei, I was headhunted, and I was just approached via LinkedIn because I started to be more vocal about what I was doing at movie games, about my work in the gaming sphere, and the community management. And this was quite a good fit for what Huawei was looking for at the moment. I mean, if you don't speak about yourself and your achievements, how anyone else would be able to learn about them? So I don't think, I think you can be humble, and at the same time, you can be outspoken, and there is a balance to strike. But I think you should be your number one hype man or hype woman, and make sure you speak up and find your niche as well and own it. Yeah.
Uh, I have a question. I don't know if I'm right, but in Howie, it was when we start with data, correctly?
When we what?
When you started work with data and something more about like the data and everything connecting to that.
Data. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
how was that?
So yeah, at Huawei, I actually started to work more with data and with esports. So first of all, I actually started to work with data already at movie games, because we would put the games up on Steam, and Steam provides you with dashboard of your game performance, your wishlist performance, the unit sold, like all of this you can get through Steam. So that was, I would say, like, that constituted the early days of my working with data, and comparing the performance of different games on Steam, but also on Kickstarter campaigns, the traffic on the platform, on the campaigns, and the conversion. I would say that was probably the first experience. Then at Huawei, obviously, it became sort of more core to the role that I had, because we dealt with mobile games, which obviously are like sometimes almost like they're like Excel sheets in disguise. I would say it depends on the title, but the economy mechanic is such a big part of mobile games that there's definitely a lot of numbers there. So that was fascinating. I found it really interesting to see how much you can read from data. And initially I became a little bit high on the insights that I could find in data. And over time, I think I had to understand that this is one of the sources which obviously carry a lot of weight because of just the pure scale and the precision of data that you can get. But you should always be able to cross compare that against different information, insights, and input. Sometimes what you read in data is not necessarily the final truth, and some behavioral or anecdotal insights can also be helpful to shape your final opinion. So I'd say that was like the biggest learning once I was there. And the esports part is funny because that the first time I actually had a chance to work with esports community and had to some extent my first project in this space was at the time when I was at Huawei, and we realized that firstly we saw a lot of Garena Free Fire players joining Huawei. Then we realized that the majority of this community was based in Romania. And we identified one of the influencers who had a large following in Garena, was Romanian and was very active at that time, streaming on Facebook, I think. And he would put up tournaments for Romanian community. So we contacted him and offered to sort of like level up the tournaments he would organize. We put extra money into the prize pool, some additional prizes like Huawei phones and vouchers for in-game items or for credits, etc. And it was so honestly, it felt so good to work with a community that was already so passionate about something and just authentically support them and be present in the space that was already brewing. I really enjoy initiatives like that where you prove that you see the community and you don't try to impose something on the players, but you elevate what they've been creating and you're appreciative of their own initiatives. And for me, that was amazing. It was really fulfilling. I enjoyed this campaign a lot. We did multiple iterations afterwards, and it was very successful. Even after I left, I saw that some of these tournaments were still running, and Huawei would support them. And yeah, that was my first step into the world of esports, really.
That's awesome. So we have a question from the public who's watching right now, and they want to ask, how did you decide to create the podcast It's Her Game?
That was funny because I actually it was during the pandemic where I was still at Huawei, and I started to think that I had very few opportunities to meet new people in the industry because all the events were online. You wouldn't travel, you wouldn't like go to different offices, exchange ideas. And I tried to message a few people on LinkedIn asking for their advice on what would be a good fit for me in terms of like next role, maybe, or what would I like to do. But people get a lot of messages like that. And I realized that I need to do something differently in order to learn more about the others first before I will start to ask my questions. So I sort of like turned the table here of the coin and decided to start a podcast and invite people to the podcast, because if you provide a platform for the others to tell the story, they will be more likely to share their experience with you, and they'll also get something in return from that. And the whole idea for the podcast, to be honest, I know it sounds cliche, but I just woke up one day and I was like, okay, a podcast is sort of like a low effort, like low leap format. Like you don't need a lot of video editing. You can do it on the cadence in a cadence that works for you, and also audio requires much less editing, as I said, than video. So, funnily enough, I borrowed a microphone from my friend, and I recorded the first episode sitting in the wardrobe, covered with a blanket, and in between the coats for like better acoustics. And that was it. To be honest, like, how I started is just that I started. You know, it's always the hardest part to start. If you start and you sort of get in the rhythm, you see initial response, like it is small, but like even this small response sort of give you a kick that that is worth doing, and then you continue, and consistency is the key, to be honest. Like if you publish regularly and you're active with the comments, with the community, with sharing your content and thoughts, then it eventually scales up. But yeah, I literally, I just woke up one day and I was like, okay, this is it, that's the format. And yeah, opened my wardrobe and started to record.
I love that because I think that's so important to like we have it needed things to women in sports because we don't have it much space. And in Brazil, we are like you're 51% of the women in games in Brazil. So
Mhm.
we are more than men here. But I think in all the world is still hard to find our space and to be seen and be valuable.
Exactly.
So I love that you created, and I would like to know more about. I know you are part of the Women's in UK, and I would like to know more about your projects for women. If you could tell more a little bit.
Yeah, of course. I'm actually I'm an active member of Women in Games International, and this organization is based in Los Angeles. And this year, I'm on board advisory board with a few other women in the space. It's what we mostly do currently for the organization is to ensure they have access to international network. I'm based in Poland, so obviously it's a bit of an extension of the headquarters in LA. They have someone here. So we provide international insights into how it works in the industry in our part of the world, so whereas Poland, Germany, or yeah, most of these two countries, I can provide some information about it. We're also available for any mentorship for mentees in Women in Games International programs. We offer our expertise and support in shaping these programs to ensure that they reflect the current industry needs and trends, and the knowledge and education that mentees get allow them to be well prepared to enter the industry with equipped with the right skills, from soft skills obviously to more hands-on expertise in different fields. So yeah, it's a lot of knowledge and information exchange, and also availability for any programs that Wiki runs. I think for them having an opportunity to tap into the network of professionals who they know will be keen to participate in their programs is quite powerful.
Really
I love
nice.
it.
And still talking about your project, like with it's her found, it's her game. Uh, there is another question from the public. She's Jade. She's asking in the YouTube, uh, what impact did the podcast have your own career in networking?
So massive, to be honest. It was. I don't think I even. Yeah, I definitely did not anticipate the impact it would have on my life. When I started, there was very few channels or public speaking people who would touch on the topic of women in games in the context that would enable to position female professionals as experts. So not necessarily to speak only about their experience as a woman, but their experience as as a professional in the space, which for me was very important to go beyond the fact that they are women and speak about the achievements they had. I think that's fundamental to build a public profile, professional profile, to be able to go beyond the core topic of the gender and actually speak about what they've been doing in the space. So when I started to do it, quite quickly became visible beyond Poland and mostly, to be honest, on the international stage. Majority of my audience would come from the US and from the UK. And I, to be honest, I was very consistent. At the beginning, I would publish one episode a week, and I would record, edit, and design all the visuals myself, handle guest sourcing and prep for the podcast. So it taught me a lot about discipline and a lot about like responsibility and sticking to the timelines and to the deadlines. Also handling guests in different time zones. Some in Asia, some in the US, some in Australia. I had wild recording hours sometimes, but um, when I started to be, when I started and when I was sort of devoted to be well organized and to public frequently, I quickly um, I quickly started to get a lot of attention for the content I was producing, and that opened a lot of opportunities that sometimes I had a bit of imposter syndrome. Where, for example, Warsaw Stock Exchange would reach out to me, or United Nations, and ask if I could put together an event for them, and I was like, myself, like, I've been recording that from a wardrobe, like you're aware of that.
Yeah.
So I would say, but I never said no to any of these opportunities, and I think that's also important to sort of like be reasonable, but also like sometimes don't. Like make sure that the fear will not stop you. That like you will doubt yourself that you can do something, but make sure that you get out of your comfort zone. Like you do not. I did not start to record this podcast to be the only person who would listen. Like I started to record it, and I had to be honest to myself that I would like to like I would like to reach with this message and with this content many people. And if I had opportunities to enlarge this group by organizing an event or participating at the panel or moderating a panel, I would take this opportunity because I knew what my goals were. And I think it's very important to be honest with yourself why you're doing this. Don't be coy. Like if you say it only to yourself, maybe you want to be, I don't know, an influencer, like, but like don't lie to yourself. If this is your goal, like you need to be honest to yourself. You may have different things that you say to the world, fine. Like eventually maybe you also get to the point where you're comfortable to speak openly about your real motivations publicly. But in the beginning, just make sure that you know why you're doing this. And for me, it was important that I wanted to be more vocal about these opportunities. And I wanted to build a network that would allow me to have more flexibility and freedom in terms of choosing my next career step. And in terms of understanding what are the options in the industry. I had very little understanding of what all these acronyms and roles, names, and descriptions meant. I didn't know. So to listen to people who had different roles in the industry, who were guests on my podcast, and I had the privilege of asking them to tell me about these roles, allowed me to make more informed decisions in the next steps. So yeah, it allowed me to build a network. It allowed me to meet many new women that eventually turned into great colleagues, and some of them even into friends. And also put me on the radar of GRID, to be honest, and allowed me to get to the place where I am right now. So yeah, it was definitely an impactful step in my life to get out there and start recording.
And I imagine that you have reached a lot of girls in a good way, like making them believe that it's possible to do. I think it's the
Yeah.
thing that I try in my podcast, make it people who is starting that
Yeah.
it's possible. You have one question and one comment from the public, and I'm going to do a hook with the comment about my question. I don't know if you know him, Thiago Buzzi. Thiago Buzzi, he works in CBCS, and Grid was one of the partners in CBCS, and he was saying that it's good to have you here. And my question is like, how was that for you? Because grid, what make grids for you? Because in that time you had the podcast. I imagine that you have a lot of, you were working the string cards, if I'm not crazy, in that time.
Yeah, correct, correct.
And what made you change for grids sport? What made like then stand out of the other companies for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I joined after Huawei. I joined Streamcards, and Streamcards was one of the projects that Grid supplied with data, and that's how I came across Grid, and that's how I started to chat to people at Grid. I joined Streamcards because the founder of Streamcard, sorry, noticed my podcast, and then I joined the company after some talks, and when I was working there, started to interact with the Grid team. Yeah, I remember firstly hearing about the Grid, getting on one of the first calls with I think Harry from our team, who's still at Grid as well. And he would explain to me what they were doing, and I had no idea. I was just like, fine. So you're like, you get this data, it comes to that, but what did you build something to get it out? Like, do you get it from the server? I had so many question marks. I had no idea what really was the point of this business when I first came across Grid. And when I started to work more with them, they were so patient to explain to me exactly what's the technology behind it, like what is the sort of the landscape of this industry. And I became fascinated with the product and with the opportunity within this sector. But predominantly, I've been really impressed. I was really impressed with people. The team at Grid is what I think was the strongest conviction point for me to decide to make the decision about joining the company. People were so kind, patient, and supportive that they are to this day. That I think it makes for a great culture at the organization, and it was the strongest argument for me. I was just so attracted to this culture and to this crowd and these people at Grid. And I made that decision knowing a little about what Grid was doing at the time and just feeling that it was good for me and that I would like to be part of such culture. Yeah, that was pretty much how the decision was made.
That's awesome. And talking more about your experience, I would like to know for people outside the industry, how would you explain why data, like why sports data is becoming so important these days?
Let me complete this question. I know if you know that most of our people who's watching is someone who is starting in the industry. Answer for me that, and answer for me like how is a normal day for you, like what you do, things like that, for people know how is a marketing.
Sure. So maybe I'll start with why data matters. Data, esports data, so in-game data, which we understood as player position, kill, death, assist, economy, everything that gets registered on the server. We view in-game data as part of the game IP. And the same way that the visual layer of the game is protected and also leveraged for building community or for creating additional touch points with the audience, the same way we believe data can be utilized to create new story arcs for the community, to create new engagement forms, to also drive revenue back into the ecosystem to ensure that the ecosystem can grow. And we also believe that it can only be done if you acknowledge the rights holder, who in the end is the creator of this IP and this game. And it is a bit different than in sports where everyone can kick a ball, right, and play football. But if you play League of Legends, then effectively you interact with Riot Games' proprietary IP. And we believe that it is essential to partner with the rights holders to create ecosystem and to also provide new touch points and value for the fans. So it can only be done with official data. And we view data, given the digital nature of esports, the digital savviness of the fans, and the understanding that the in-depth understanding that the fans have for the games they care about. Data is just such a natural extension of the story and the experience that they have watching esports. Everyone's interested in stats. Everyone wants to know where the major pentakill can happen, who would slay the Baron, who would have the most chickens killed in Counter-Strike. Like, all of this is the story point. Like, it makes you smile, right? So we want to make sure that we can tell these stories best with the rights holders, like hand in hand with the rights holders to create something exciting for people who care about their games. That's what I believe is also quintessential for advancing the fan engagement and the ecosystem as a whole. And that is also, to answer to the second part of the question, what is quintessential for my work at GRID. I don't think they are two days that are the same. I would say there is a bit of a framework that I try to work into to ensure that we have the right cadence of projects, that things get tracked, and that obviously we don't operate in chaos. But you also need to be prepared for unexpectedness and for being challenged creatively or commercially, and working with the team. The growth role is quite unique because it sits at the intersection of product, marketing, and sales. You need to understand the product well, you need to understand what resonates with people and how to externally, and how to translate what you're building, the complexity of what you're building, into something compelling for your customers and for the end users. So I was fortunate to join GRID in the role of delivery manager, so I could work hands-on with the product in the integration team to understand how the product works and how to integrate with the partner, understand the pain points of the customers. And after that, I moved into marketing role, and now to build the brand and the presence of GRID. And now I can combine expertise from these two fields to be effective in the role that I have right now. And the role that I have now is focused on finding new use cases for our data. So we work with a lot of sports books and bookmakers and some media platforms, and we're looking now at more media platforms and AI use cases and different verticals that can benefit from high quality, fast and granular data. And that's where my responsibility is. And I also oversee the marketing team that is in charge of translating what we're building to externally facing messaging. So I have a lot of interaction with different team members at GRID, and I have a privilege of representing GRID externally as well, what allows me to travel a little bit and to visit different places, different events and conferences, esports events and conferences, including the one that I'm really looking forward to. So Cologne Major in June, which I'm very excited about, the EFG tournament, which this year will get the major recognition. So yeah, that's pretty much what how my work look like.
Really nice, really nice. Uh, I I have a question about the GRID Sports Data Gen. It was a really success that, and I think it's not working anymore. They don't have more that one. How this is idea started? Why they stopped it? Because I remember that the first one, if I'm not crazy, it was 2023, and I was just finishing the information systems graduation, and I really think about trying to do something, but now they don't have more. How was that?
I need to follow us on LinkedIn because we just wrapped up another hackathon earlier this March, which we did with Cloud9 and JetBrain. We supplied that hackathon with official data for Valorant and League of Legends to allow the participants to build something with these official data resources. I remember in 23, it was my idea to put it together. We just launched Open Access, which is the open access program where you can get data for free to from Counter-Strike and Dota to start building your projects. We still run it, and we did a hackathon to build awareness of this initiative. And it was funny because we put it together and we're like, yeah, okay, it's gonna be nice if 100 people would participate. And we ended up with over 800 people participating. So we're very happy with the response and with the engagement. It was fascinating to see how people from different parts of the world, how they approach creation and then presentation. And we would also do some matchmaking to ensure that everyone has a team. So we would connect someone from Brazil with someone from Japan, and they would work together to create something. That was great, like really wholesome to see that the esports community is so international. Had great success with that. And the next hackathon we ran was the one that started last year, with Cloud9 and JetBrains, and I think it was also over 1,000 people who participated. So we see that there is a lot of need for quality resources and initiatives that allow people to express their interest in esports and their creativity and build something. And it's if you give power to the hands of community, they will create magnificent things. You would never dream them up, and you would never have time to build them, and then they have time to build them in like 30 days, or 2 months. And I'm really grateful for that. And it was great. It was a great adventure to run it and to support this Cloud9 and JetBrain hackathon last year. And I'm hoping for doing more. So if we have any brands that are interested in running this, I'll send them my way, and we'll be happy to put something together for them as well. And it was great to see innovation that's brewing internationally, and passion of people who build and participate.
That's great. And we are going to the last questions. And we have a question from Thiago Buozzi. He is asking about what is the great next steps in Latam marketing, and how much do you see the Latam sports market growing over the next years?
Of course. So we're pretty global, I would say. We ran this tournament called Champion of Champions Tour, and we have a team dedicated to that. And I know that they're running something in Latin as well. I think they would be best equipped with speaking to that part of the business. I think our goal is to ensure that the official data can be the power of it can be unlocked for everyone. So we are very optimistic about the LATAM expansion as well, and making sure that we can provide platforms in that region with quality resources, so they can build fan engagement products, or they can support the betting operations in the space. And I think when it comes to the general growth of esports marketing, I really enjoy seeing the professionalization of the space that still does not take away from the scrappiness and the passion that sits at the heart of esports. I like that this growth has been respectful to the core qualities and character traits of esports scene. I do enjoy the fact that there are more and more sponsors coming into the space, and sponsors who are interested in unique activations. So not only slapping the logotype on the broadcast, but actually doing meaningful, sometimes data-driven activities for the fans and for the audience. And I would like to see more of that. This interactivity, data-powered innovation, and building out an ecosystem where everyone can find the right way to interact with the sport they love and they're passionate about.
Really nice. Our last question, I think, is one of the most famous one. Is usually you ask for our guesses that if you could give one advice, like usually we say like the golden advice for someone who is starting in your area data or something like that, what is this advice?
I would say make yourself a bigger target for luck is the one I always give, because I feel like you need to you need to put your heart into what you're working on. So be prepared to learn and be keen to learn. Don't think that like you're already there and you know everything. Don't be afraid of asking. Make sure that you ask questions, and people are there to help you. And if they don't want to help you, then they're not the right people, you know. And definitely get out there. Yeah, go to the industry events. Try to find your community. That's what I mean by like making yourself a bigger target for like it all. It's really like, the world is relationships run the world. So you need to make sure that you're authentic and you build meaningful connections, and this eventually will lead you to the place where you will feel accomplished and you'll find your own path. So yeah, get out and play games, join communities, be active on Reddit. Like whatever is your form, doesn't mean you need to be on the stage, or record a podcast, but just yeah, connect with the others.
Nice, nice.
That's great.
Uh, Thank you very much, Dominika. Thank you very much, Jovan, again. Dominika, now you usually give you a time if you want to say something for the public. You want to, I don't know, say that your podcast is going to back. Everyone is wants that. Everyone wants that. You, if I don't know, say about some projects you have now. Do you want to say something?
I don't think that at the moment I have any large announcements, but if you do not want to miss another hackathon, you can follow myself or Grid on LinkedIn. And that's where we publish all the announcements about all the upcoming initiatives, all the games we support, or cool projects that are powered by Grid. So if you want to stay in the loop, make sure that you find either Grid, so GRID Esports on LinkedIn, or myself. And yeah, I'm really hoping to see more people building with even more people building with data, and creating cool stuff and making their professional career out of working with quality data sources.
Nice, nice, really nice. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank
Giovanna, you want to
you.
say something?
No, just thank you so much for your presence here. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much. And that's it.
Thank you for inviting me. It was really enjoy working talking to you.
No, thank you for accepting. It was a pleasure talking to you. I think you are the one of the people had the other peoples are mostly engaging to ask and everything. So thank you very much. I'm going to close the podcast, but if you could stay to talk to us a little bit about,
Of
I'm going to
course, of
be
course.
okay. See you guys. Thank you
Perfect.
very
Thank
much.
you, guys.